Good morning, my dear friends. It is time for the morning briefing. It's a gorgeous day. I know it's been really, really hot, but the fishing in Southern California is even hotter. Welcome to the morning briefing with Friedman Adventures. Can you indulge me, please? Just with one sip of this delicious nectar from the gods. Oh, man, I'll tell you, that coffee gets me going every single morning, and it is great to be back with you all as we are just back from a tremendous 2-day trip on board the Amigo. I'm going to go through that with you, cover some other fishing with you, and get you in tune with the very latest, as well as give you some tips that I observed firsthand on how to make things happen. First of all, September the 10th will be at Bass Pro Rancho Cucamonga. I'll be arriving about 11 a.m. We're going to do a podcast at 1. You'll be able to be part of the studio audience and also ask questions, participate. We'll have some raffle prizes. It's just going to be a fun party out there at Bass Pro Shops. Disneyland for all you outdoorsmen, and it should be a really spectacular day. So I will see you at Bass Pro Rancho on September the 10th. Really looking forward to that. We have 3 charters left. You can check them out. Wish you would join us. I must say that this last Amigo trip we got in last night was one of the best I've ever experienced. And I don't know if it was all the spectacles of nature we saw, foaming tuna everywhere, fish like Dorado coming out of the water on our ride home last night, whether it was the whale we saw, whether it was the giant molas, whether it was the phenomenal wide open Dorado fishing that before this trip I'd seen on the ridge on an 8-day trip out of San Diego, but I've never seen it locally this good. That is really a tremendous bite, and I hope you get in on it. But I guess in the end what it comes down to is the great crew on the Amigo, from the captain, Mark Paisano Jr. He is so good. It's unbelievable. And then you add the crew, Mark and all the guys, Brett in the galley, and you've got Nick on deck, and you've got Anthony on there. They are such capable, great deckhands who are super, super nice. And then one more thing, the people who are on the trip. I mean, we added some new people to the Friedman Adventure family, and they were outstanding people. I put the fishing second. We're looking for people who are kind of people, willing to help one another, willing to chip in, willing to make sure that everybody on board is having a good trip, kind of like it's a team effort. We certainly had that on this trip, and I want to thank you for being there, and thank you for providing such a great atmosphere on this most recent Friedman Adventures trip. They don't get any better than that. All right, let me start you down in Ensenada, where we normally start. Tell you the Pongueros down there are rocking and rolling once again with tremendous kelp patty fishing. They've got great Dorado fishing down there, a few big yellows on the kelps, more yellowfin tuna entering into the picture, and the marlin are just about everywhere. In fact, on our Amigo trip, I was up in the wheelhouse with Mark after we had just caught limits of Dorado and still were catching a few fish. And I looked out and I could see the Fury, and I could see a marlin greyhounding right toward us on board the Amigo that they had hooked on board the Fury. And then you heard all the moans from far away, and you knew that they had just busted off a striper. But really incredible stuff. So down there in Ensenada, Pongueros are doing really, really good. You still have to find the right kelp patty, and then you are in business. And there's still a lot of bluefin down there, and those BFTs seem to want to bite a little bit better. They're still mostly finicky. You have to hit 5, 6, 7 schools, get into a drift on them, and then you can make it happen. Now, speaking of that, the San Diego did just that. Out of C4 sport fishing yesterday, they were out. They leave in the morning, come back in the evening. So that gives you an idea of how long the trip is and how remarkable this fishing truly is. They end up with limits of bluefin tuna. A lot of that, want to say 25 to 50 pound, a few bigger than that. They were catching those fish on a fly line bait, a good hot bait. We saw it over and over again on our Amigo trip. Is the key here. Take your time, choose that hot bait, combine it with fishing fluorocarbon. We like OptionUSA.com. Put in FA at checkout, and Greg Brown will write you a love letter as well as send you a free gift. So that works really good. And on board the San Diego, they were fishing number 2 hooks. So that bluefin, the way to get around it, if they are finicky, is light line, lighter line, 30 to 40 pound, not too light, because you'll end up in a 2-hour fight where ultimately you lose the fish. smaller hooks, good hot bait. That seems to make all the difference in the world. Mustang fishing down there out of SD yesterday, 116 on the Dorado, 12 yellowfin tuna, bluefin, and a yellowtail. And yes, we are seeing yellowfin up and down the coast. Donna down there, Dana Wharf Sport Fishing, sent me a note and said, Phil, we are seeing on our Dana Wharf Sport Fishing boats more and more yellowfin every single day. I am convinced, as is Donna and everybody over at Dana Wharf, that that's going to play an integral part in our fall bite. That yellowfin will start to bite, and bite really good here at some point in time. So keep your fingers crossed. So looking really good in the offshore situation down there. And as we move you up here into the LA Orange County-based boats, there's still hits on the bluefin tuna. There's nighttime fish up there at San Clemente Island that some nights bite and some nights don't. I mean, we had a dedicated group of anglers who fished till about 2 o'clock in the morning. And that was at sunset till 2 in the morning. We only got 2 fish. David got one, and of course, Joseph Martinez, the guy that caught the 315-pounder up there on the Endeavor. What a joy it was to have both those guys on the boat, as well as everybody else. They got a couple of fish in the 70-pound class, but those guys worked their tails off all night long. Once in a while, you'll get a hit for 30, 40 of those big fish, up to 200 pounds. Some nights you don't. Now, in terms of the Dorado bite, and in terms of what else is going on, I'm telling you, it's phenomenal. On the Amigo, we were looking around, trying to relocate the fish. Remember, we were out there the day after the blow. We'd had a couple of days of sustained winds, which knock water temperature down, move fish around, make it a lot more difficult. So Mark Paisano, along with guys that he was talking to on the radio, were playing detective, trying to figure out where did the fish go. And it took them till about 9 in the morning until it turned into phenomenal fishing. The stories you've heard about hundreds, perhaps thousands of Dorado free swimming around, they're true. You will see it. You will be blown away by what you see. Anthony on board the Amigo reached over the side and free gaffed a Dorado. That kind of a bite. Now, there were kelps, especially in the very beginning, where you needed to be fishing 20, even 15-pound, real small hook, lively bait. And then there was that kelp that Jeff Markland helped us out on, called us over there from the Thunderbird. We went in and saw the kelp, and as we got close to the kelp, maybe 100 yards, maybe even a little bit better than that, I looked down in the water off the bow and saw literally hundreds of free swimming Dorado before we even got to the kelp. And at that point, we just started saying, guys, heavy, 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 go to the 40-pound at least. So guys did it, got bit, we threw on limits, phenomenal fish, great a fish, beautiful, a lot of 8-pound fish. I'm gonna call that the average, up to 20 plus pounds. Phenomenal fishing. It is mind-boggling. And you know, we're sitting, the Fury came in on that bite with us. They were outside of us, and in between us are these jumping Dorado everywhere. Guys gaffing fish and throwing them on the boat over there on the Fury. Same thing on the Amigo, same thing over on the Thunderbird in a wide stretch. And then I told you about the Marlin. We saw yellowfin tuna. We saw some big foamers of bluefin tuna. It is so lively. The ocean is alive and well, and it's going to be one hell of a fall here in Southern California and Northern Baja. Anybody who tells us that we are not truly blessed with our fishery here in SoCal, you are nuts. Freedom, 100+ Dorado for Trevor, and Tino Valentine doing a great job. Thunderbird, 175+ on the Dorado on their most recent trip. Triton, 9 guys, 56 Dorado. Monte Carlo out of 22nd Street Lander with around 50. Sport King, 45 Dorado. Navigante out of Redondo, limits of Dorado. And 18 yellowfin tuna. So that fish is starting to play a more important role in our fishery here in SoCal. It's really looking good. I don't know how it can get much better than that. So the lesson that we learned on that trip was what I've been telling you all along. Be observant and listen to the crew, okay? Because they're talking to Jeff on the Thunderbird, who's telling Mark, they're biting everything we're throwing at them. Go to the heavy. And when you go to the heavy, you're gonna get your casualty rate down, and you're gonna put a lot more fish on the boat. We had limits in frenzied, phenomenal fishing. Can't describe how good it was. Looked like the Ridge, looked like a long-range strip. When you looked out there, you would be hard-pressed if somebody put you in a time machine and transported you on board the deck of the Amigo, and you said, where are we? You'd say, well, of course we're on the Ridge, or of course we're on a 10-day trip. and it's not true. It's going on right here. And coming back last night, we saw so many Dorado jumping out of the water at mid-channel between San Pedro and Catalina. It was mind-boggling, just jumping out of the water. And it was so great to see that. And of course, we also saw bluefin after bluefin after bluefin foamer fish up on the surface, putting on an incredible show. It was truly magnificent. We did not have many, if any, fish on the artificials. It was all bait for us. I'm sure they'll bite it if you worked hard at it, but I mean, they're biting the bait so well, who in the heck wants to play games with that? So our nighttime bite I covered with you. The next day, we end up out on Tanner Bank, and out there on Tanner, we found decent fishing on fish that were maybe 8 to 30 pounds. Those bluefin out there, again, in the very early mornings, they wanted to bite on the lighter line, so light stuff, good hot bait, smaller hook. We never really got it to fire up that good. And there was a mix of fish out on Tanner. We've been seeing mostly smaller bluefin tuna here recently, and we certainly saw some of that, but there were some bigger ones. Guys couldn't stop them. So we got into this game of, all right, I want to get bit, but I don't want to hook a 60-pound bluefin and then get screwed. And that happened to a few guys. So that's a much more difficult situation where it's mixed up. You're not sure what you're going to get bit on, and you have some trouble in terms of getting a bite. So you're tempted to go to that lighter line to get the bite. It worked out well for some guys, and then others it did not. Sea lions, a little bit of a problem out there, but Nick, the deckhand, wrestled one bluefin away from a sea lion, did a great job for Josue, a 19-year-old kid who joined us on this trip and fit right in with all of us crusty old men, and he did a phenomenal job. And I don't want to just pick out Josue, all you guys, you were fantastic. Thank you so much for providing us with, once again, a great Friedman Adventures family type atmosphere. All right, islands, there's yellows at most of the islands right now. There's still some sea bass up there in the Channel Islands. There's been some decent hits up there at times, pretty darn good. Yesterday, I think on the Aloha Spirit, they had 4 white sea bass. Mirage had mostly all rockfish. Island Spirit fishing locally up there with very good rock fishing. We see rockfish at Marina del Rey, Redondo, but a lot of guys are tempted to go offshore and catch these Dorado, as it has been absolutely phenomenal. Lots of surf fishing guys out here for Labor Day weekend. Corvina fishing's been really good. There's been a lot of yellowfin croaker here in Surfside. I know that down at Bolsa Chica, similar kind of biting up there near the Topaz Rock Jetty, as well as El Segundo. Lots of Corvina biting up in that neck of the woods. Natural baits, light line. I don't know what to tell you. This trip on the Amigo was so good. And if you're going tonight, or you're going tomorrow, or you're going to get out on this Labor Day weekend, I send you all my best and positive vibes for a trip like we just had. Phenomenal trip. Once again, all my thanks to the crew and the guys at 22nd Street Landing who make not only that trip, but every trip on board the Amigo so special and so great. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I can't wait for another Amigo trip. It's going to be fantastic. And then to all you guys who joined us on a trip that none of us will ever forget, thank you so very much. All right, Friedman Adventures with the morning briefing. It's so great to be back with you all. Man, this Daiwa sweater, I'm getting a little hot here this morning. It's warm. It's going to be another hot one. Stay cool, my friends. Stay hydrated. And I hope to see you again really soon. Maybe September 10th out there at Bass Pro. Thanks, everybody. Have a great, great day.